Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Power Spike. We've got our first weeks in the book for a couple of the regions here in the East. LTA gets kicked off as well, and Europe is in week 2. It is full go for the League of Legends season here for spring split twos or whatever you want to call it in the new world. dGon here along with Dom and Jamada to break it all down for you. Welcome, gentlemen, and hopefully all of you at home are doing well. And we're gonna start with checking in on everyone. Dom, how you doing? How's it going, bro? How's your week?
I'm doing good.
Boom,
I'm chilling.
Easy.
I did my Ruddy Sack streams, and my team is not completely embarrassing. So we'll take it.
You also did the sack down with Spawn. Is that the most recent episode I think that you guys did? How was that one?
It was good. A lot of hidden gems in there. I like the way that Spawn was so like open about his team, and the things that they've dealt with, and talk about the way he talked about how he's going to be always looking to try to get the best players on the team, and how he's making the players fight for their positions and spots where players are underperforming. And I just think that mentality is part of the reason why he's been such an effective coach for TL.
Yeah. Jamada, how are you, man? How's your week?
Good, chilling. Just watching all of the League of Legends going on. To be honest with you, we had a really blessed week in terms of the matchups. NLC kicked off. Got to watch Dom's team not shit the bed, like he said. Yeah. I almost got him cancelled in the press conference. I was really close. I didn't quite manage to squeeze it.
What happened?
He said on this show, or he said that on this show, I asked him for the pass to say the N-word, which is not what I asked. What I asked was
the way that you're saying it's not what I asked is like it was kind of close, which I don't remember.
No, what I asked him is I'm like, do black people in Europe like say the N-word? Like, do they have?
I do remember this. I do remember.
Do they say it as open? Because in the United States it's like very common, and I was like, is it to like the same degree? And it's like because I was wondering. Obviously, there's like less black people in Europe than there are in the United States, so I was wondering what like the culture differences were. So I asked Jamada that, and he told my team that I asked if I could say it, if I could have the pass.
Look,
never asked
you've
if
hired,
I could have the pass.
You've hired some black excellence this split. All right.
Yes.
I just wanted to know how they were treating you. Anyway, didn't quite get him cancelled.
Okay.
How they were treating you? What?
Yeah, how they were treating them. Yeah, how Dom was treating them, and how everything was going.
Yeah,
right?
He's trying to figure out how close are you? Are you like, do you get the pass close, or are you still just kind of like, bro?
To be fair, I saw Gaetan handed him an events pass for 3 months, so Dom used that one well. But yeah, otherwise it's been a fantastic week. The league has been a blessing this time
around. I know that we normally would do a sack tap, sack tap here, and we kind of did. But another thing that we get a unique look in is kind of like the way that Dom gets to look at Cloud9 matches. This week they go 1-1. A very surprising close game with Shopify Rebellion with a ton of former Cloud9 guys in there. Contracts popping off, my boy on Nefiri. How did you view the week for Cloud9 here, knowing that you are invested in this team now?
Well, I think the first thing the players said as they were killing the Nexus in game 2 was, we won, but we have fucking AIDS. that was the last comm that I heard. And I was like, you know what? Like, the players were not very happy with that second game. I think the main thing is just that we've been kind of falling into the trap where like when you play scrims and people are like so aggressive in scrims all the time, like a lot of our advantages are just coming from like lane phases and stuff like that. But on stage, people are just not interacting. They're just not interacting. They're not trying to like, push advantages at all. They're not trying to like trade. They're willing to accept like small deficits. And we just were playing in a way where we were not able to force the enemy team to make mistakes effectively. So I think that in terms of like how we viewed it, it's kind of like a failure of a week, because we know we're like a lot better than we showed. So I think a lot of like the stuff going into next week is going to be, all right, we're winning a bunch of skill checks. When the enemy team isn't skill checking us, how are we going to like progress the game and just like start to make sure that like the enemy team is just forced to, interact with us more when we have winning conditions. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see how everything ends up going this week and see if we're able to make progress on that, because it was one of those weeks as well where like when you're doing too well, it's almost like you don't know, like when everything works, it's like, what are we actually best at, and like you feel like you could do everything, but when you're on stage you start getting like more feedback as to the ways you're actually winning games, like what are your actual strengths are. So I think even though like you can identify the stuff in scrims, the difference is that like teams do not contest vision like super seriously in scrims. Teams do not like normally when you have a standoff in scrims, it's like, oh, somebody's killing themselves, and then you just like kill the person that kills himself, and then you just have control of the zone, and that's it. So like how do you play when the enemy team is like, how do you play in ways to force the enemy team to do something bad? I think that that's something that we need to like just get way better at, because yeah, people just they try to just skill check all the time in scrims, and they just lose the skill checks because we have like Loki and Thanatos, who are like like Loki's rank 1 right now, like Thanatos just pretty much wins top against like every single top laner in the league. So you end up in this situation where it's like, okay, they're just skill checking and losing. So many games start with like the enemy mid killing himself level 2, or the enemy top laner killing himself level 2. Completely changes the situation. Like, then when you start lane swapping, you get into the next point of the game, you have such an advantage that you're able to like cheat ideas. So I think that the main thing that we need to do is just be able to figure out like the real details of everything. Like, how are we going to make sure that these enemy teams have to fight us, and if they don't fight us, they're losing.
Got it. That's so fascinating to think of it from that perspective. Also, I was a little worried when you're saying, oh, they're not interacting. I thought you meant between the team. But you're talking more about how do you get the opposing, how do you put the opposing team in a position where they have to fight us at the deficit rather than just keep skirting around. That's cool. Well, thanks for that, Jamada. Thoughts on that kind of insight here from the early weeks of Cloud9?
It's always very interesting, kind of seeing a top team try to build out from not like square one, but like Dom's saying, right? You've got a team that mechanically is very solid. The region as a whole is, I don't want to say macro light, right? But NA has always had the stigma around it of macro has not been its super strong suit. So trying to force ways where you can actually get teams to interact with your strong point, which in this case, the C9 roster is they've got pretty good hands, is always the direction you want to try to push your team into. Scrim to stage is always going to be weird because, again, players will always play differently compared to stage and scrim. And even if you were to talk about the whole stream and scrims thing, if that was like also involved, that was part of that discourse back then too, right? So yeah, it's just very, to me, I would say something that is interesting to look at if you were to track different teams. I think specifically with C9, they shouldn't have too many worries to kind of look at here. I think, again, it's kind of playing the map when there's nothing on the map necessarily to actively play for, right? No like neutral objective to play for. That's always the biggest interest to a lot of like coaches, analysts, is how you actually put your team or get your team to kind of think habitually to get them in spots where they can use their hands a little bit more than their brains, right? Just kind of activating their brains so that they can use their hands in those kind of downtimes after like 14, 15 minutes.
No. Well, one of the good games that we had, a nice back and forth match there by Shopify and Cloud9. And we had huge bangers that mainly came on like Saturday, Sunday, Europe, China, and LCK, Korea, all bringing some great games. But before we got there, we had some terrible games and honestly, some terrible teams. So our first segment of the day, full-on segment of the day, is Rank 'em. And we're ranking, as of April 8th, time of this recording, it's the worst teams in the world. Let's get into it. Our top 3 worst teams in the world. Now that we've had split 1, beginning split, the I guess the prep phase for LPL, LCK Cup out of the way. LTA had their basically like 2 best of 3s or whatever they had before the worst teams got knocked out. And then Europe had split 1. So when we talk worst teams in the world, a couple come to mind for me. I think of Rogue, pretty shit. Wasted my time watching their matches earlier this week. Even the casters were a little tired of it. LNG, the fall from grace has been brutal for the team. I think a lot of it has to do with just the previous expectations to where they're at now. The DN Freaks look like Berserker against everyone, including his teammates. It's been brutal. You can go dig or disguised. You saw a little bit out of Scary Jerry this week, and that was like the worry, but they still are 0-2. And dig, I don't know what they're doing. So let's ask the guys, what do you think, Dom? And when we go to worst teams in the world, our top 3 worst teams in the world.
I would say Bro 3 times.
God damn it.
That team sucks. That team's
They
really
won a
bad.
game. They won a game.
They won a game, and I don't even understand why they're playing with the roster they're playing with. Okay, we have to just make this clear. Paulo needs to stop playing League. Like, he needs to retire, or he needs to go somewhere else. Like, he maybe he can play in like LTA South or something. But Paulo is really bad. Like, he is absurdly bad at the game, which is tough to watch because it's like I keep on thinking that he will be good, and maybe I'm just biased. I'm like, he's young and Korean. Like, he's got to have like talent, right? Like, if he's playing in LCK, if he's a young LCK player in Korea, surely he has some talent. But that guy is like not good. He is very not good. And then also, why is Hambach not playing for Elim? I feel like Elim.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't
boring.
know. Yes, that one was
Like,
killer. Watching that.
I mean, I feel like Elim has passed with Elim being a good player. I had some hope maybe in like 2020 with T1, how maybe in 2020 I was like, okay, maybe I can see something here. Maybe they've got some talent, but man, this guy is just, he doesn't have it, bro. He's just not good anymore. So when I watch this team, I just don't know like how they're going to be better. Like, even Closer is playing like pretty decent. I mean, Closer is a player that has
Closer's
like variable
playing really
form.
well.
Like, he's fine, but like the rest of the team, man, like they are just so sad to watch. Like, it's actually really like upsetting to watch this team play. So they're in that conversation for me. Like, Bro versus DN Freaks, I don't know who's winning that. It feels like DN Freaks. I mean, DN Freaks is so much worse than you'd expect, but I mainly blame Pioshik for that. Like, when you watch Pioshik play, he has no idea what he's supposed to be doing in a game. Like, you can tell that he plays every single game the same exact way. When he plays Vi, there's no nuance to like, okay, in this specific game, I need to play a side lane game, or I need to like engage on this specific target, or I need to hold my ult, and that will be like how I, leverage my power. There's none of this with this guy. It is just like, he'll just send it in the worst ways possible, and it's like, all right, yeah, that's Pioshik for you. He just, it's generally bad. Bulldog is kind of in the Palu boat for me, where I've just been waiting for this guy to be good. I'm like, Bulldog's rank 1. Is he going to be doing it? Oh, he's just bottom tier still. So Bulldog's another player that I just like don't believe in. So who knows? I think Berserker has got into pretty good spots, but if you look at how Bro plays like the steps to the game, it's not there. The way they play the steps of the game, they just will do things that don't make sense. They'll contest through areas that they shouldn't contest to. They don't know which waves to play on. They don't know like, where to go on the map. And I feel like that's just the mark of a team that is going to be bottom tier permanently in LCK. Because if you don't know this stuff now, like if you go watch T1, GenG, Hanwha Life, DK, the way that they understand the game, it's like this stuff is like they don't even consider it anymore. It's like they know obviously fucking what midwave to play on. Like they know where to walk in from, where to contest vision. All this stuff is second nature to them. But it's not even that it's like DN Freaks, they understand it, but sometimes they mess it up. They literally just don't know what to do. They're just playing like, oh, I guess we just fucking walk in here. So I don't know if it's bad coaching or the players just don't have the ability to learn. But it's really crazy to see a team like that play this badly around these things, because you have a bunch of experienced players, and it makes you feel like, was Pioshik just getting carried the whole time? Like, was he just getting carried the whole time on these previous teams? Because if you don't know this stuff now, if you're not able to like recognize that your team is messing this up and be able to call it in the moment, and you've had this problem on this team for this amount of time, Like, I just don't think that players really forget that type of stuff if you've ever really been somebody who understood the concept fully. So I just think that this DN Freaks team, like, they can maybe coin flip some games if they like win lanes or they like find good like comps that work for them, whatever. But they will never be a good team because they don't understand the game at a high level.
We were looking at the coaching staffs and the coaching staff styles, like whether there's like a new wave over at LCK where you've got like former pro players that are recently-ish retired, or they're mostly known for their playing career, that are coaching these teams, like a Bengi, like a Pumandu for D+, like Dandy over for Hanwha Life. And then you got the old school style coaching, like Coach Kim, like Koma. You go down the list here. You have Rapid Star over with DN Freaks. You have world champion long time ago Edgar for the Bros, and you kind of wonder, is it time to go a direction of this player way? Is it a player way to kind of change things up? It's kind of interesting. And also, you brought up those two teams. They play, and it's just so slow. It's so painful. It's like watching a baby walk. And then you see T1 and GenG, and it's like watching Dragon Ball Z fight. They're so fast. They know exactly what they're doing. I think that's a really good point. Bro 3 times, DNF maybe 4th, sure. What do you got?
No. Look, hey, that was just to piss you off.
No.
I actually want Rogue there. I feel like Rogue are not only fucking dog shit, they are also just like really horrible to watch play. Like, they're not even fun. It's literally like Ruddy Sack from Winter. It's like, if you're gonna be fucking horrible, at least be entertaining. Yeah, and they're just neither.
The problem.
So, yeah, it is what it is.
This is the really big problem. It hasn't changed. It doesn't matter what roster iteration they've had for the last couple of years. I was putting Rogue 4th too, so I'm kind of glad that Tom changed his tune and he stopped talking so I could fucking take the shit. Rogue, I said it on the last episode, I think, when we touched on Rogue. They are philosophically flaccid, and I think that is a top-down thing. That doesn't come from... If you've changed 4 out of 5 of the players, and there's only one player who's remained the same, cough, Larson, right? You can maybe point fingers at Larson, because obviously his performances have deserved the scrutiny that they've gotten. But at what point do you start to look at the system that is letting this just exist? Like, this style of League of Legends exist, where it feels like that for ages they've been trying to imitate like the slow, meticulous play of like top-end Korean League of Legends. But then someone just fucks up on a step somewhere along the line, and then they have no plan B. There's like no recovery. And this is the worst year to even try to play like that because of all the objective spawns basically being on a cycle of every 3.5, 4 minutes usually. So you can't afford to be a slow team. And then on top of that, even if you are a close to successful slow team, which you're, in Rogue's case, you're not, all it takes is one strong hit to like get knocked off your bike. And in this case, we see it time and time again. Even if Rogue managed to, I'm not even going to say acquire, like manifest the league somehow, or fucking nothing. It's one bad like third dragon setup, or it's one bad herald setup, and the game is just in complete disarray in terms of a plan. They just go into complete like autopilot turtle mode with very, very few times where they're looking proactively to try and get themselves back into the game. And I think that's a top-down thing. I think that's a very, very, very top-down thing where, to me, again, you can point at Larson and say Larson's been on the team now for how long? Since 2020 or 2019? He's been there a long fucking time. But to me, I feel like this is bigger than a player issue, because I don't think a team plays the exact same style, forces multiple... Like, I look at last year where they had Finn and Chagenda. And so you've got these two top lane players who are at their core carry players, at their core counterpick players, and then you're trying to force them to play, you know, Ornn, Sion, like boring frontline champion. Like, you're turning them into slaves basically out of the top lane. And that just kind of sums up Rogue. It feels like they're trying to be a team that they're not very, very consistently. They don't lean into individual player strengths, because it seems like they always have this one clear vision that they never have a roster for. They haven't had a roster for since they last won a title. And even before they won that title, it was kind of same-ish, to be fair. And now they're just completely sinking because there's all of these teams in the league who are buying more and more into the individual players' identities and trying to lean into those strengths. And the meta has consistently shifted to a more active style of game. Like slow League of Legends doesn't get rewarded as much as it used to.
Yeah. 2019 is when Larson got bumped up to the first team. His contract, I posted it in chat, his contract runs through 2027. That means he will have been on this team for 8 years. One championship, 8 years, collecting two second place finishes for the spring and spring playoffs in 2021 and 2022. I like how you bring up like it's been the same person. Malrong has been there for a while too, even though it's
he's like in out, yeah. But
yeah,
like even with Malrang, like Malrang's a fucking psychopath. This the way this guy he doesn't. There's not he doesn't have a chess brain, right? For League of Legends, that is not Malrang's style of League. This guy wants to send plays like as frequently as he can. He's not built for farming. He's built for like early game, fucking make or break in the first 10 to 15 minutes, right? And even in that, it feels like they tried to leash him a lot on that. And don't get me wrong, it's a very volatile style of League, and I think that's the problem. If they did their homework on Malrang, considering they brought him back, right? It's like he left the roster and came back. It's like if you want a slow style of League of Legends, how the heck, like what planet do you land back on Malrang with again? If that's really what you want, it doesn't line up. So again, I view this as with Rogue. Yes, their gameplay is shit, and yes, you can definitely criticize like individuals, but I still look at this as a coaching issue, as a management issue, and just going like, come on, like better decisions have to be made somewhere along the line. But I guess they're just happy to coast 9th, 10th for the 7th split in a row.
You know what I heard, which was crazy, is like their roster is actually like one of the top 5 most expensive rosters in the LEC.
Oh no!
So they're spending money while being this shit.
That is, I would like to imagine that is like Larson's paycheck doing a lot of the heavy lifting there to bump them into that bracket. But even
I can't imagine Adam being paid nothing. Like,
but that's exactly like even that. And you know what? I brought up Shigenda and Finn. Why the fuck? Like, obviously, Adam off season probably a little bit funky, right? But you have I don't want to say Adam's jailed because I feel like that'd be a knee-jerk reaction. But I couldn't imagine being a player like Adam who is really like lane centric, really trying to like occasionally like bring his leads out of lane if he gets them individually to the rest of the map. But my team or my team style of play is to try and just like sit there and try and suffocate out the enemy team every single game when I'm not getting played for like that. That shit would feel horrible. But yeah, again goes back to the system thing. I don't know why Adam's there if that's the kind of League of Legends you want to play, right? I get sometimes there's power in name brand, but even in that, Adam's had a rough couple of splits prior, so it's like I don't know if I'm Rogue, I may be thinking about taking a chance on a ERL talent at that point. Not that Adam should be back in the ERLs per se. It kind of depends on your perspective of his performance overall, but that's the kind of mindset that you should be having if you're a manager thinking about trying to bring your team out of fucking like 10th place 5-6 splits back to back like that.
We brought it up earlier. There was the talks about them selling. There's there've been lots of articles about that for a while now, 9 months ago, like a couple weeks ago. I wonder if it's they are more attractive to buy if you have brand name players there to build upon rather than here's a shell of a team and good luck you can build it from scratch. Even though that sounds like a good idea when you know what you're doing, if it is a non-endemic like a Navi that isn't endemic with the space, doesn't have roots into ERL or anything like that, having like you look down and you're like, oh yeah, Adam, I remember he played on Fnatic. You know, maybe that helps with the sale. I'm not sure about that. Just thinking about why you would go with this kind of name roster, go with Malrong again. You get Execute. Oh, he played in LCK. They made playoffs when he was there after he got subbed out. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure why you would run this kind of roster the way it is. You said give me your top 3. And now we've talked LCK, we've talked LEC a little bit. Give me your top 3, Jamada.
Worst being number 1.
Yeah, worst being
just
number
for clarity.
1.
Rogue is there. Rogue has to be there.
Okay.
It's just the way it is. And then afterwards, I'm probably taking. Probably still take the SG. Then I'll go over to Korea. Actually, no. Go to LNG. We haven't spoke about LNG. We're not gonna speak. We're not gonna speak about now at length. Maybe Dom has some strong words. I think it's just the whole like stretch of time, LNG being great, making it to Worlds, top 8 back to back, into whatever the fuck this monstrosity is. I think that makes it feel a little bit worse. Free Zika, right? That's my entire statement on LNG. And then yeah, we're over in Korea. I think with Bro Soz. Well, actually, technically, they're like the least worst of the bad in my list. I feel like they just need to find an identity. It's always difficult, I think, in Fearless to try and find like an identity, but you can always find like characteristics of the same draft still. I think a lot of the time, and I think they need to try and find something that works for them at the very least, because there's still. If I was to play Glass Half Full, I feel like there's still sequences which are promising for Bro occasionally, right? Sometimes their early games look okay, right? I'm not going to say like super well played, still looks kind of rough, but yeah, I would probably put Bro down in that fourth slot.
That's the Brobium, man. They look like maybe this will be the day they don't suck. And then they suck. Dom, what's your 3?
My number 1 is probably also Rogue. My number 2 will be Okay Bro. And my number 3 ooh. My number 3 I want to say LNG, but honestly, like when it comes to LPL, I mean LNG they're bad, but when it comes to LPL, I really hate watching fucking OMG play, man. Like OMG really like they really piss me off watching them play, because it's like not only are they bad, but they also have like Moham, who's just like a disgusting inter as well. Like he is just filthy inting like half the games. Like he makes some good plays, but he is an inter as well. So when I look at their gameplay, I don't know. I just feel like this is a team that I hate watching the most. They might not be the worst team in the world. We'll see when they play LNG, but they are fucking bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. Here's our list of the worst teams in the world. Rogue, DNF, bro, DNF. The LCK teams are just so bad. It's so bad comparatively. Like when you watch the good teams and then watch the bad teams, it's so tough. So I'll slot them both there just because comparatively it's brutal. Also, I think the LNG thing is more of a comparison of where they were to where they are. Those are our lists. Let us know in the comments below who you think belong to be in there, deserve to be in there, and do some research. You know, I know that some of you guys don't watch one team. Maybe you watch one region, maybe 2 regions. Now that we've listed off multiple different teams, go watch a couple of them, and you can see so far after the first couple weeks of action here. And while you're there, make sure to like and subscribe. All right, got the nice little toxic out of the way. Definitely no more toxicity in the rest of today's episode. As I want to give a reminder of one of the friends that we have for our show, and it's our friends over at Raycon. You might have heard us talk about our friends over at Raycon, where we've discussed their everyday earbuds and how their latest model is better than ever with a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair 2 devices up to at one time. you'll never have to worry about Bluetooth again. Makes the perfect Mother's Day gift. Mother's Day is coming up. And so, between juggling work and family and everything else, an everyday earbud by Raycon could be perfect for their moment to relax, recharge, and enjoy music podcasts like ours and take calls in crystal clear sound. And Raycon has some of the best features in it, including active noise cancellation, which is difficult to find at an accessible price point. And that's not an issue with Raycon because it starts at just half the prices as other premium brands. And finally, if your mom's not loving Raycons, which is, up to them, it's a 30-day happiness guarantee return policy, no questions asked, to get yourself the deal of the day. It is a great deal for you. 20% off site-wide when you go to the website buyraycon.com/powerspike. That's buyraycon.com/powerspike for 20% off site-wide. Thanks to our friends over at Raycon. All right, time for a little keeper kick with maybe some underperformers in the West. Teams that we've seen go international, but struggle, and now aren't starting off very hot and quelling some of the fears. Unlike Top Esports kicking ass over an LPL. We're talking about Team Liquid and Movistar KOI. Two squads didn't do well at Worlds last year. We got to see Team Liquid over at FST. Didn't look so good. And both teams not going so well after playing top opponents. So who do we keep and who do we kick after week one of LTA, 2 of LEC? Who's going to be better going into MSI? Let's get into it. All right, Jamada, let's start with you. TL and Movistar KOI both play top teams, don't get in unblemished, have things to work on. Which one do you think will be able to fix it moving forward?
Now, I have a very potentially interesting angle.
Okay.
I'm going to keep TL, which might seem like the obvious answer here. Just hear me out. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is two things. We brought up the sack down earlier. Spawn on the sack down to use the headline of the thumbnail. Everyone is replaceable. Some reports came out. I think it was via River, and I can't remember who the actual article was with, about TL scrimming without Umpty. Kind of a big deal. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Kind of a big deal if that's going on, because I feel like even in this first weekend, you look at some of the things that TL are doing. TL generally making okay-ish decisions around the map, but there was like in the FlyQuest match specifically, a couple of engages where it just felt like Umpty was doing his own thing. Right? It was there was one around the Atacon where it felt like they were kind of being pulled around the map a little bit, and FlyQuest were on the Atacon, and he's engaging on, I want to say it was Marsu and Busio, and whilst they were kind of isolated, it was like no one was near him. They were like everyone on TL was like a solid screen and a half at the closest distance. And then the third dragon, where admittedly it was just kind of a mechanical thing, but it's not something you want to see out of your Jarvan. He like flag and dragged, and it was just kind of a clean miss, and it started off a turnaround for FlyQuest to basically kind of take full control of the game when they already had it. So if Umpty's potentially getting phased out, and I don't know who the replacement jungler is because there was no name given. I'm also not going to put maybe Dom Scrim TL and or C9 rather, and Dom's with there, and it's been a different jungler, and he knows who it is. But if that's the case, I'm going to keep TL because I feel like across the board, even though you can point to some inconsistencies in TL's play, especially internationally at first stand, there's still like the big bright positive of Yeon on core in the bot lane. They even 2v2'd Fly's bot lane still twice, despite losing, I think it was twice anyway, during that game in complete isolation, like no outside factors, just raw dog them. So it's clear these guys are still performing really, really well. APA, I think, is just gonna probably continue to gradually, improve. And impact is impact, right? I don't really know what to say about impact. It's very rare that you see impact go on a long streak of just losing lane or making like game losing decisions individually for his team. So if Umpty's not there to drop, death record games, I think the team probably looks significantly more consistent in most areas. And I do wonder, depending on who it is, if they're like a vocal player, things like that, if he's how he's integrated, whether that changes things like decision making and overall priorities on where they play around the map. So if that's the case, I'm keeping TL. Based on that stuff that I've heard, I'm there. I'm actually here to keep TL instead of ripping the home reps for me with Koi.
Where did you hear the
So I was listening to what's the show called? Travis Gafford's show. He had Pop Smithy on it last night. Hotline League. There you go. I was listening to Hotline League. And they brought it up. They spoke about it.
They brought it up because to be fair, they brought it up because Spawn said it on my show.
that is also probably
that's how it came out. It was leaked by well, it wasn't really leaked. It's like I asked Spawn if I could talk about it and bring it up on the show, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm 100% down." So it came from our show. That's how it got out there.
Cool. I wasn't aware. I haven't had the time to watch the sack down yet of Spawn because I'm actually very interested in watching it. Just haven't made the time for it yet. So if it came out from there, good journalism, Dom. Keep that shit up, brother.
It wasn't really journalism. It was just like
he just did it. Yeah. No. So yeah, that to me is where my head's at with TL in comparison to Movistar Koi, because with Koi, I feel like at many times their performances are, it's the parts are significantly greater than the sum. Is that how you say it? I want to say. And individually, a lot of the Koi players are kind of performing a little bit under expectations, and it's leading to the performances that we've been kind of seeing. Their strength of schedule is a little bit, there's a lot to talk about there. They played G2 and KC in the opening week, so it wasn't an easy week to come into the LEC with. But yeah, I think again, with everything I've seen out of TL and the fact that they make it to back-to-back internationals, I think they're very capable of very consistently finishing top 2 inside of NA. Umpty has been the most scrutinized part of that roster, and for good reason, right? So if that is something that is being tended to and fixed, I have very little reason to believe that I shouldn't keep TL over MKOI, who have, I think, got significantly clearer issues going on as well, top to bottom.
All right, Dom, get in there. What do you think of this theory, and then how do you feel about this keeper kick between TL and MKOI?
I mean, TL's won 2 out of the 3 splits that they've played with this roster, and Koi is 1-0, right? So it's like, to me, I mean, Koi, like, they got top 2 in a winter split at the beginning. That was the split where Adam got benched, and that's really carried their hope. Like, outside of that, they haven't been in any finals. They haven't had really any impressive splits, if you think about it. Like, winter, I don't think that was that impressive. Them being like a 4th place team, sure, it's like fine, but it wasn't like Fnatic was playing super fucking well or anything, and Fnatic beat them in a best of 5. So I don't see why people are hyped on Koi, really, and I don't think many people are outside of like Spanish fans.
I can tell you why. It's simply because people saw that Koi were able to finish top 3, make it to internationals, and then they replaced undeniably the weakest part of their roster in Frescalvi with, homegrown NA, prestigious talent Jojo Pyun. And people thought that Jojo was gonna come in and go, toe to toe with Caps and with like Humanoid on a good day. And he's not really consistently done that, unfortunately. He's kind of just, I don't want to say he's been a passenger quite, but
he's actively lost some games for sure.
Exactly, right? He's kind of just existed, and he's made decisions that have straight up lost them games multiple times, right? It feels like the first 10 to 15 minutes of his game, I don't feel like I've seen Jojo 1v1 in isolation, or even with a little bit of jungle intervention, outright like hard lose his lane on a consistent level, maybe once or twice here and there. But outside of that, I haven't seen Jojo provide a straight up game winning moment again to the same kind of quality and consistency that I will sometimes see out of the other, high level and strong performing mids right now in Europe. So yeah, that's kind of the thing with Koi and Jojo. So that's why I feel like people were so hyped on them coming into the year.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if you saw the tweets here, Dom, but like Peter Dunn was fighting the good fight, as he was fighting the narrative that Jojo is the 7th best mid in LEC.
Yeah, which
He's not
which is not
mid.
actually like the narrative you should be fighting. Like, I don't like.
It's not.
Not many people actually think he's the 7th best mid in LEC. Most people just say that because it's like he's overhyped, right? Like that's what they're arguing. The main thing that I would say is like, okay, is he able to compete consistently with what you consider to be the top 3 mids in LEC? Like that's what I would ask. And if you say no, then it's like, yeah, then he was overhyped. Like if he's the 4th best mid in LEC and he's an import, like he's overhyped compared to what you expected. Like people thought that he would be, in competition or probably better than Vladi coming in, because Vladi is still a rookie. Like it's still in his first year of play. And, Vladi is no one compares those two guys anymore, right? Vladi is way above him. So to me, when I hear that type of stuff, it's like, yeah, it's really easy to go for like the mega extreme argument instead of what the realistic argument is, which is probably people thought Jojo would be better. He thought that like the perspective was that Koi was being dragged down by Fresskowy, which was true at Worlds, but actually in a lot of the major series, like if you go back and you watch the major series that Koi played last year, that Mad played, versus like, Humanoid versus Caps, Fresskowy actually was like solo killing some of the best mids in LEC. It was kind of like a meme where it's like, what the fuck? Like Fresskowy solo killed Caps, Fresskowy solo killed Humanoid. It felt like unreal because it kind of, the way that people phrased it, or like even what I said on the coaster, was it literally looks like Fresskowy is so bad that he's like baiting the enemy team to try to kill him. He's like making, for example, I think there was one where he was playing like Ezreal into Corki or something mid lane. And he played the lane so bad as Ezreal that the Corki tried to kill him, like Caps tried to kill him and ended up killing himself. So it didn't feel like a real, like, oh man, like Fresskowy's just shitting on this guy. And we saw the same thing when Humanoid played against him, where Humanoid was just trying to murder him because they just feel like he's not good. But realistically, like his results in those games, even the series where Mad Lions ended up beating G2, which is the series that qualified them for playoffs. I think that was like the only best of 5 they had won. Was that the only best of 5 they won in like 8 months or 10 months or something like that? Like it was like
the one like that. Yeah,
it was like something crazy. It's like they just didn't win a best of 5 the entire time that they were in LEC. Outside of that one, because they had the points from Winter, they ended up qualifying to Worlds based off that. Even though BDS was like 3rd in like multiple splits.
Objectively, just the 3rd best team in the region last year. Yeah.
So you look at these situations and it's like Fresskowy was actually playing much better than Jojo has been playing in the big series. Like when you watch Jojo play in the big series, he's like running it down. So I wouldn't even say that Jojo's like outperforming Fresskowy, except for when they play against the bad teams. And it's like, who really gives a fuck about those games anyway? Who cares about like how hard Jojo shits on like Kamilu or whatever? I don't give a fuck. Like I watched that shit yesterday. I didn't care. I'm not like, that didn't raise my opinion of Jojo. It's like, okay, nice. He can like 100 CS gap like a LFL2 mid laner or whatever the fuck. Like what was Kamilu in before this? It was something like this, right? So to me, I don't think that JoJo's shown anything to be good. And then also when I look at Koi, it feels like a lot of their strengths that they had before, which was like bot jungle AD synergy or support jungle AD synergy. It feels like all this is like not great. I mean, if you looked at yesterday's game, Sheo was full clearing to bot side. You know he's full clearing to bot side, and then he just walks in lane and gets like multiple kills. And suddenly Sheo is like massively ahead of Elyoya. And it stemmed from like pretty much nothing. And they end up winning because their comp is so much better and they find like picks and whatever. But they haven't showed me that they're actually a good team. So I feel like they're weaker at the points that used to be their strong points, they're weaker at. And I don't think Jojo is markedly better than Fresskowy. Like I do believe that he's a better player, but he hasn't shown me in his performance on stage that he's been a better player than Fresskowy in the last, however long he's played 1.5 splits.
That's crazy. Just because, again, the JoJo that we knew, and I felt like he got so much of a pass on his time with EG because he won the championship right off the jump. Then fucking what's her name destroys the roster, destroys Danny. He then was dragging a not as good roster in the second season over at EG, and then after that closes it on out with Cloud9 and not looking so great. So yeah, not exactly sure where I guess the bar should be for JoJo right now.
It should be the same place. It should be like, are you a top 3 mid in LEC? If not, you're underperforming.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have landed on top 4, but yeah, I think the sentiment is still the same, right? Like you have to be bare minimum like upper bracket in playoffs level on this side of things, and he's unfortunately just not quite been. Like it was nice to see him, I suppose, have a good series yesterday, but again, as Dom was highlighting, it's against the rookiest rookie of all rookies in the league right now. So yeah, bad time. Bad time if you're a JoJo fan at the minute.
All right. Well, there's our stand here. Oh. There's our stand here for this week's Keep or Kick, as we're going to try to work through some of Dom's camera stuff. We can hear him, but camera's a little meh. Let us know what you guys think at home. Would you keep Team Liquid or Movistar Koi by the time we get to MSI? Will they be able to figure it out or not? Let us know in the comments below. All right. We have figured out where the attacks on Dom's internet was happening.
Wasn't even my
Concentrated
internet.
somewhere over, all right, just kidding. I'm just kidding. Please, no trucks. You know what you could get if you want to spend your money? It would be something that would be better for you and your health. It's our friends over at Factor. Make this season the best yet with 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating this well has never been this easy. Just heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle. And with 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your goals. Choose from Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Plus, Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, and premium dinners. This is very weird plurals here, as well as guilt-free snacks and desserts. I don't know why that was so hard. It's easy to savor more. It was, it's easier to do to make the meals than it is to read the ad read here. It's easier to savor more this spring with Factor meals packing in the flavor with none of the fuss. So get started over at factormeals.com/powerspike50 off and use code powerspike50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's powerspike50 off at factormeals.com/powerspike50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Thanks to our friends over at Factor. All right, let's get into that blessed set of matches that we had that basically just ran through Sunday into yesterday with our certified bangers of the week. Let's get into it. All right, certified banger of the week. Let's start off over in Korea since we already only talked about the bad stuff. Sorry, bro and DNF, bro and Berserker. After having like a pretty sleepy match, I think it was D plus and KT or something like that. Boom! Yep. T1 and GenG play in week 1 after the LCK for like the 5th year in a row. Not 5th year, fifth split in a row. GenG has won the last 3 battles. T1 won the very first one after they play in the finals. And it was just so good. The teams played out of their minds, and it ended up being the most watched regular season match of all time, which is just crazy to think about in week 1 between T1 and GenG, given the fact that Hanwha Life exists and was pretty good. D+ were dominant during LCK Cup. No, it's the Classico here. What did you make of this match, and what made it just a certified banger for you here, Dom?
T1 losing. That made it a certified banger. T1 lost. That's it. That was the banger.
You slamming Guma hate in there too?
I actually just, it's weird because you come up, like, when you watch the matches, it's like Guma played, I think, objectively poorly games 2 and 3, which is the 2 games they lost. I thought game 1 he actually played really well, and then games 2 and 3 I thought he played like pretty bad. For a top tier
Game
AD,
2, he took the Corki, the Corki Valkyrie right into basically losing the lane and not being able to do anything.
He just completely drifted.
It wasn't even the lane, it was the game, right? Like,
they should have lost the game super hard off that. They were just lucky that like Ruler ran it down multiple times himself in the mid game, and that's how they ended up, stabilizing the game, and they ended up having a lead, and they could have even won. But watching that was just really weird to me. That Corki Valkyrie, like, he just straight up just power into that bot lane. And that was after Keria had created a good situation for them in the lane. Like, Keria got like the flash trade on the Nautilus, and Keria was essentially winning the lane, which is what Keria is really good at. And then Guma just inted it away. Then game 3, people don't realize how bad his Caitlyn death was in this game. Like, people watched the game and they're like, oh, he got hooked and he died, but they traded 1-for-1. They killed Zaya back. It wasn't that bad. Like, that's how a fan interprets that. If you think about the position that the enemy lane was in, the Caitlyn and Bard had crashed the wave, and the wave was pushing back into them. Canyon was all the way topside. Canyon path top, so he's on top grab. And the Sejuani was pathing bot for T1, and the Sejuani is behind them. So their wave is pushing away from themselves, and they have no jungler on their side of the map. And instead of that being a situation where they just like can't touch the wave, or they just get ganked and fucking die, or they just have to take a recall and swap on a really bad timer, and then they have to lose the TP and somebody ends up getting fucked in the equation. Instead of all this happening, it just ended up being like a 1-for-1. And even though the wave was fine, it's like, then they end up swapping off of it, and the whole situation is good. So for me, when I see that, I'm like, damn, this is a pretty big mistake. Then later on, the no flash blitzcrank gets Bard stunned, and he missed traps on top of, like, he missed 2 traps or something on top of a Bard stun target, which is a free kill. And it's like, if you're not taking
bot lane, in
the Riverbush bot lane, and if you are playing a champion like Caitlyn and you fuck up the lane phase, like, the whole idea of Caitlyn in general is that the enemy is trying to break your conditions, because when you are sitting there with flash up and your second summoner, and you have tempo all the time, and you're able to just back whenever you want, and you're able to hit turret whenever, like, then Caitlyn just becomes so oppressive because you're just always ahead. So even the fact that you're worse than other champions on like 2 items, you're just never 2 items at the same time. It's like you're 2.5 items when they're 2 items. You're 3 items when the guy's 2.5 items. You're 4 items when the guy is 3 items. You just get a lead where it's like you never actually feel weak in the context of the game. But when you have like this missed kill where like you don't get an advantage, when you have this death bot lane where you're not able to get the advantage, and like Zaya is able to get through a lane, like you're playing Zaya Blitzcrank and they got through the lane versus a fucking Caitlyn Bard. They played double range. Like, you're playing Zaya into double range, and they were somehow able to get through the lane and be stable throughout the game, and Ruler actually ended up being strong. So I consider these to be like huge mistakes, and it seems like people didn't perceive it the same way. Like, I saw most of the comments were about Doran, which I like completely disagreed with. Like, don't get me wrong, like I don't think Doran's a good player. Like, I think that there's a problem with Doran, like with how he plays. So I don't want people to think like, oh, you're just defending Doran because you like him. No, I don't like him. I actually think he's bad. I agree with you that he's bad, but I don't think that the things that he had to do when he was 2K gold up, that was because he set up good plays with Owner. Like, he baited Keen one time with biscuits. Like, I thought that was really fucking smart. And then he had a lead, and T1 did not let him use his lead on side lane. They just started fights where they were like going forward with Sejuani and Bardolt. They would compromise their position. They wouldn't be able to actually get like a trap under the Bardolt or the Sejuani ult, so the guy would just be able to be fine. And then they're getting chased. And when that happens, the Jax has to TP just so his team doesn't get fucking ace. Like, these are not great situations for Doran to be put in. And people are making it seem like he had the option to just use his gold lead on side lane to beat Keen. And he just didn't have the option. His team was making mistakes and drawing him to situations that he didn't want to be drawn to. They were inting Doran this game. But like, because his name is Doran or something, they're like, it can't be it can't be not Doran because the other 4 were like world champions, so they must be doing the correct play, and it must be Doran's fault. It's like this type of fucking weird thing that you get into, which is the whole reason. Like, there's so many reasons, but it's just one of the fucking reasons that I hate T1 is every time you try to talk about the game honestly, it's like you're just met with so much like illness that it's like, can we just like watch the game and talk about what happened? Can we please just talk about like the fact that it's not Doran's fault that his team is starting mega int fights in red side jungle and they need him to TP to bail them out, or they're all gonna fucking die? Can we just talk about like what's actually happening on the screen? So I don't know. I thought that Guma had a pretty rough series, and I think the issue was also that you saw the same Guma that you saw before. You saw the same champion pool issues. You know, he's not able to pick the Ezreal, the Kai'Sa. Like, these are not things that he was able to go to. He just played Jhin, then he played a Corki, and the time where he tried to play something he normally doesn't play was the Corki game, and he just power ran down that game. He like solo into that game effectively with what he did early game. So it's like the one time he wasn't playing a Guma champion, the game was fucked. And also Corki is not it's not the type of champion people were wanting to see him play. People wanted to see him play Ezreal, they wanted to see him play Kai'Sa, they want to see him play like a champion like Zeri, something with mobility that you're trying to like, you know, carry a team when you're being played around. He didn't even have the opportunity to be played around because he ruined his own conditions. So for me, he was played around games 2 and 3. And in the game 3, it's like, you're getting played around, and what did you gain? You got a trade kill when you were being played around. Like, that's not good enough if you're going to be taking resources from the team. And this just goes back to what we talked about last time on the show, which was the fact that Guma and Doran should not belong on the same team at the same time. If you look at where Doran has found success, he is like a top laner that is essentially a weak side top laner that understands how to play for the team. He's willing to give resources, and you pair him with somebody like Viper, right? You pair him with somebody like Ruler when Ruler was like peak, right? You pair him with somebody where his team is able to benefit from the fact that, like, yeah, you're putting things into Doran, but he's always going to be he's always going to be fine in the game for the most part. Unless you put him on like a Camille or some shit, then you might have a problem. But for the most part, he's going to be fine in the game. He's going to be useful in fights. He knows what to do, like, in order to help the team. And then you have Guma, who is also somebody who's really good at just like being useful when he's not being played around. And he's, you know, somebody who's good at supporting the team. He just supports the team in a different way because he's an AD carry. But his best champions are all like, okay, Xayah, you're just going to be like anti-dive. Just don't let them kill you. You know, just scale up and then you'll be able to be fine in the fights. Ashe, Jhin, Varus, like, these are all Guma's best champions. They're all essentially the utility AD carries. Like, he was good at playing Jinx, but only Jinx with like Tahm Kench. It was always Jinx with something that could bail him out. When he is like on his own and he has to self peel, it's a much different situation. When he has to play Ezreal or Zeri or Kai'Sa, and he has to be the one that plays the fight in a way where he's using his own abilities to defend himself, it's much different than if like Carry is standing next to him and then he's just going to eat him. So you're seeing the same problem where you have two people that are essentially weak side useful players, but now T1 has like a lack of firepower. Unless it's a carry jungle meta and owner can go crazy, or like it's one of those metas where, you know, the support becomes essentially a carry, where the, you know, you're playing Ashe support and like he's gonna fucking end up having so much pressure in the game that you can play like this. If you're not able to create these conditions, then you're just not going to be able to win games. And I don't think GenG even had like a great day, to be honest. Like, I thought Ruler was like a little sus throughout. You know, I thought some instances of Keen's play were not as crispy. Like, that wasn't the Keen Sante that everyone talks about. That wasn't the Keen Sante where you're like, oh, he's just 1v9 in the game. What the fuck? He's like absorbing so much space. Like, he died a couple times in lane. The whole Keen Sante is supposed to be, he's like ahead, and he's just never dying, and he's just frontlining and absorbing so much space. So this is not like even a prime version of GenG right now, and T1 wasn't able to beat it. So when you combine everything, it's like, this is what everyone worried about with this team. If it's not, if it's the jungle meta we're in now, owner is one of the most mechanically talented players on your team. He doesn't have the agency to carry. Support meta we're in, carry doesn't have the agency to carry. It's like a setup support meta. Faker is Faker. He's one of the best playmaking mids in the world, but he's not somebody who wants to be the hard carry. That's why Azir was honestly so good for him, is he was able to balance being a playmaker, but then also he like effectively would scale like a carry champion. So like, where do you get the power in this team? Where is the firepower of this T1 lineup coming from? And right now, it just doesn't look like it's going to be enough to, you know, get a top spot in the LCK.
Jamada, get in there.
I mean, to not retread too much of what Dom said, I think some of the other takeaways were that I kind of just to actually touch on the very last bit, the overarching theme really to me is that T1 arguably had outside of Guma a pretty good day and still couldn't overcome a GenG who were very clearly having a lot of issues individually where they were making these mistakes that would allow T1 to take control of the game for long periods of time. And I think the biggest thing that was kind of on my mind, not to go back to the Guma Smash thing, but to go back to the Guma Smash thing, I look at the Game 3 draft and I just kind of think to myself, what happens if Smash is in that position draft-wise? Do we end up with Caitlyn? Do we play the same style of game? The answer is almost always no, right?
Hell no.
Like, it's always a big fat hell no, right? So I kind of just feel out of the series that this is a good case study of why T1 need to either make a carry out of someone, or the most easy plug and play thing is right now is to put Smash in a little bit, right? When it makes sense. Just when it makes sense. Like not a all of the time thing, just actually utilizing the 6th man that you have logged in your roster. The game 1, right? Obviously there was a lot of setup between Doran and Ona, but seeing Doran be one Gwen, Doran's never been a Gwen guy, right? He just never has.
Yeah.
Even during actual Gwen metas, and have a strong, very, very impactful performance. In the context of having Grim in the bot lane, if that's the kind of player you're going to get out of Doran, fantastic. But that's not going to be Doran every game, every day, right?
That's more of Gwen, not Doran.
Exactly. That is a, like, Gwen is to many, if not first, because I don't think she got hit with the hot fixes, right? It was just Neferi on this patch. Gwen is just best champion in the game. So you've got Doran on the best champion in the game. Fan-fucking-tastic, man. Well played. You beat a GenG who were clearly kind of shitting themselves a little bit. But then throughout the rest of the series, it's like it felt almost toothless to be kind of critical of T1. Almost to an unfair degree, I feel, but it's T1. You have to hold these guys to a high standard, right? I mean,
it's weird that we do this thing where, like, with T1, we don't treat them like defending world championship champions, even though they won. You know, like normally in a sport, if a team is, you know, the defending champion, like for example, the Boston Celtics this year in the NBA, and they end up like, let's say the Boston Celtics got 5th, 6th in the East or something like that. They weren't looking like a top team. They're looking like, you know, maybe the 4th best team in Korea, something like that. Like that would be a huge fall off. But it's like, because T1 was not the favorite last year and they ended up winning anyway, it's like people don't really consider them a champion to the same degree, where it's like people don't consider them the best team in the world. Like people don't think they should be the best team in the world. And also obviously like there's a lineup change with Doran coming in, but it's like it's this weird thing where we treat them like the best team in the world when it's convenient, and then when it's not convenient, we just say whatever, like it's just fucking LCK or some shit like this, or like they'll get it together when it matters. You just have like these types of
I can't speak for everyone. To me, I've just gotten used to the fact that T1 domestically kind of just exist in the league, usually in that top 3-4 until they make it to Worlds and they do their fucking bullshit magic, right? Like,
I just think with that, their success, their 3-year run, when it was the same roster, bought them that. You know, it buys them that kind of leeway. And now we should definitely be more critical because there is the change of how this game plays and how the firepower works. And with Smash being introduced, you still have Owner, you still have Faker, you have these, and Carrier, you have these 3 rocks that you can still like latch onto. But before, I think we would do that because they bought that, their success kind of bought that kind of thinking. The other thing that's kind of happening when we're talking about this game is we're not celebrating GenG as much. Yes, in the games that they lost, people underperformed, but every player except Keen, and I know chat's saying like he was fine on Cassante. I was like, I don't know, he got baited a couple times. Every player in the server had a game where they played well. Like, it took game 3 for Duro and a little bit of game 2 for Duro, but it was fine. Ruler played solid in game 3 and good early game in game 2. That was great. Chovy was the hero in game 3. He was absolutely picked on in game 1 and didn't look good in game 1. But you can go up and down this roster of like studs, and everyone played well. I do want to talk a little bit about GenG as well. Those are my two takeaways.
I'm happy you brought up Duro, because I do want to say, especially before shit got hectic in the later stages of the game, Duro was like kind of single-handedly keeping GenG in the lead time and time. Well, like keeping GenG competitive, because the early game was a bit more back and forth, right? Despite the weird sequence of Guma getting hooked and dying, GenG were at like a 2.5, no, not 2.5, maybe 1.5, 2k gold deficit, I think, come the third dragon. But the actual item states were fine. Everyone was at parity. Duro found the hook onto Faker, because I think Faker just kind of a bit randomly face checked the Dragon Brush through mid before the rest of T1 were around him. And Duro just throughout that game very consistently was either blowing flashes or getting flash for flashes, like, period, and making it really, really awkward for T1. He was I don't know, I can't remember, because I think as soon as that game finished, I kind of just stepped away from the piece. Was like, holy shit, I just watched a little bit of LCK history. So I don't know who you guys, or who the series MVP was, or who the individual game MVP was, but to me, Duro was, whether he got it or not, he was like the catalyst, like, player throughout. So it's like, that's where my vote would have been for like game 3. Duro put in an absolute fucking shift. I think Chovy's recovery throughout the series after the Azir game was very solid. I think his Galio game in particular, like Galio just existing, put GenG in such a good spot anyway. But the massive taunt after they'd kind of thrown away the Baron, I think it was not Elder Dragon, but maybe Soul Point Dragon turnaround. Incredible stuff, right? And Chovy pretty much they kept GenG alive, because if T1 won that fight, that probably would have been the game. Like that straight up would have been the series, and we'd be talking about this as a T1 2-0. So there were a lot of bright spots. Like you said, everyone on the rosters had at least one very solid performing game. But I do want to highlight, especially Duro in that game 3, the context of the massive names on the roster stepping up regardless, despite all of the pressure on fucking Blitzcrank of all champions. I think is 100% something to celebrate.
Yeah, quick couple notes. The MVP was Chovy, just because of the final play there. The votes were split mostly between Canyon and Duro. And after game 2, Duro's the youngest player on this team. He's playing with Ruler, who's played with everyone. Not everyone, but he is Ruler. He was yelling at him, being like, I told you not to step up on that wave. When after game 2, that was the Ezreal moment where he steps up, he loses the lead, Nocturne jumps on him, and all of a sudden T1 look like they're back in it.
Duro was
like
that?
Yes, it was fucking. Wow. They did the mic check, and immediately in our comms we're like, "Holy shit! Did you hear what he said?" I'm like, "I don't speak Korean." They're like, "Oh, he was yelling at him." and then in the post game, we did like a special Ruler, like, congratulations for like 600 games in the LCK. They said, wow, it sounded like Duro got on you after game 2, and then his Blitzcrank was pretty good in game 3. What did you think? And Ruler goes, yeah, he did okay early game, maybe like 7 out of 10, but late game, he wasn't doing so well, so I give him a 2 out of 10. He was hooking bad targets, so he dished it back. And it was like, oh, wow, this is a very cool growth of a relationship between two guys, and you could see it. And that was kind of cool, which is why I wanted to talk about GenG a little bit. Dom, the thoughts about GenG before we close it on out.
It's hard to like evaluate GenG for me, because a lot of the things that you would kind of just accept as, just how the way GenG plays just don't really exist anymore. Like, there used to be a confidence you would have with GenG leads. Like if GenG was even or even like down 1k in a game, you'd feel like they were going to win. But now when I watch GenG, it's like the fact that the game 2 was even close, the fact that game 2 ended up being like 38 kills or whatever the fuck it was, or 38 minutes, I forget. It was just a super long game with a ton of fucking kills. It just feels like I can't get a good read on why that happens. I mean, obviously in this game, it's like Ruler dying. But
that was really his fault. Yeah.
there's definitely like other moments. Like I didn't think Chovy had like a great game one, for example. Like I thought that his game one was a little bit sus. And it just feels like they are way less responsible than they used to be with leads. So it's very hard for me to like know how good GenG really is. I mean, I know they beat Hanwha Life, but it still doesn't feel like the GenG that I was used to watching before.
I will say with the Chovy game one, it did feel like Chovy had a lot of the gold in the early game, and he was just trying to at least make something of something. I still think there were like a couple of very key moments where you kind of go, was that necessarily like, I can't remember again what dragon it was. He shifted into the middle of the fight. I think it was to finish off Owner, and then he didn't have it to like reposition because obviously Azir doesn't get that ability twice. And losing that fight, I want to say again, it was probably the third or fourth dragon. That was kind of, I think it was his third death at that point because he'd been trying to make plays already, or he got caught out on a side lane once where he set his tower down. It was like 3 or 4 people around that account when he just shouldn't have been shoving out that wave. So I agree. I think that's the key thing with GenG is usually it feels like as a unit, they're all on the same page. They understand what's, side of the map is their strong side. They're happy to like, not necessarily drop waves, but they'll identify what wave is a dead wave, and they'll just kind of let the enemy team play with it and go and play their game on the opposite side of the map. That has kind of fallen to the wayside to the occasional individual mistake, which unfortunately these individual mistakes have been very high, value costing ones.
It feels weird being a Chovy apologist, but the game one game felt like the deaths that he had, they were on vision. Like T1 was on vision, and so he knew that there was a gank coming. There's a possibility of this. I'm going to try and outplay it. And in LCK Cup, he said, there was an interview during LCK Cup where he said, I am looking at Faker and looking at things that he does and trying to emulate a little bit more of that. And I think it's nice.
So he just became a worst player now. Well played.
No,
well played, bro.
No,
you're literally like the best player in the fucking world. And then you're like, I want to see how Faker plays. Like, Faker's lost every single LCK split for like the last 3 years. And he's like, I'm going to do that shit too. It's like, what the fuck, bro? Like, nice, man. Congratulations. Like, you really fucking did it.
I know we're wrapping up kind of soon, so I don't want to like go too long on this point. But what I will say is, I think at the end of the day, Chovy is like a very, very known quantity. And the reason why he's such a known quantity is because that consistency is always there. Yeah. I think it's fine to kind of take a slightly different angle. I think it's fine to want to try and dabble in not full-blown reinventing yourself, but every now and again you make a decision that you wouldn't have made, even if it's on stage. Just not even if it's against like your better judgment or anything like that. It's just like you have tried to have a little bit more faith in yourself in areas where it's not that you wouldn't have faith in yourself, but you would make a different decision because that is just the habits that you have inbuilt as a player. And I would see, what Chovy's saying there as just trying to be a different player to the one that we know, as opposed to actively trying to make a worse one. Which, to be fair, the game one was rough by the end of it. Yeah. Like the end result was a bad game. But yeah,
he's playing more like Faker now. He succeeded. You're the GOAT.
I'm gonna need to find that interview to.
Now, I remember seeing this interview. Like it was after Worlds, and like I understand the general premise of it, which was like, okay, I'm sure that when Chovy is beating Faker like super consistently in LCK for like years, he thinks that he's better than Faker, right? Like individually, like why would you not? Most players are delusionally biased towards themselves anyway. But like if you just won like 4 championships in a row, and you're like essentially. If you look at how he played most of the time, he was like dominating Faker for the most of the time individually.
Yeah.
And if you see that player win Worlds, it's like, okay. It's kind of like being a hater to just be like, oh, he's just winning Worlds for no reason. Like, what is he doing in order to win Worlds? And it's like, yeah, he does have this clutch factor. He does have like more of a playmaking mindset. So I understand like his point of trying to incorporate that into his play. But like, to me, it doesn't even feel like that's what's happening. Like when I'm watching him play, it just feels like he was more precise before. I felt like he had just better awareness of everything that could possibly kill him. Like his reactions and fights were better. His team fight judgment was better. And I can't attribute this to like him trying to change his play style. Like to me, that's just cope. I think he's just simply playing worse.
All right. Well, there you have it. This was our certified banger of the week. T1 and GenG regular season history there. A great best of 3 for no reason. Like that's just what it felt like. This week of LCK was okay, and then all of a sudden, banger. Let's also include the bangers that happened over in LPL. That would be BLG versus IG, and we can throw in this last one here: IG versus anyone's legend, which happened just before we recorded this. That game 2 ending was just crazy. So make sure to check those ones out. That's all the time that we have this week for Power Spike. Let us know in the comments below. Again, worst teams in the world. Who would you keep or kick? TL or Mad Lions Koi? And until then, take care of yourself. We'll see you for the next episode of Power Spike. See ya.